Welcome to our sort of electronics people at Google Talks. Today we have Nathan Seidle. Seidle. He said just say "si" and then say "duh," and so I'm trying to do what he said. Nathan started SparkFun how many years ago? 4 years? 7 years ago. It's an overnight sensation, and he's going to tell you all about that. I gave away Arduino boards to the first 29 of you. Thank you for coming early. I'm sorry I don't have more for you. I'm sure that your managers will help you expense anything you want to buy from SparkFun. So with no further ado, Nathan.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. So Nathan Seidle, how many of you have heard of SparkFun before I came? Oh, fabulous. Okay, and how many of you were at Maker Faire over the weekend? Oh, fabulous. You guys know what I'm going to talk about then. This is pretty straightforward. I just got done with 2 days at Maker Faire. I think there was like 60 or 70,000 people there. It was a ton of fun. We ran a bunch of people through our booth, teaching them how to solder, and so we're just going to talk about where SparkFun came from and some of the stuff we do there. So do I have to stand here or can I walk over there? You probably won't hear me if I walk over there. Okay, fine. So this is me. Quick background, please stop me at any time. This is not a presentation, this is more of a conversation. So if you guys have a question or something doesn't make sense, please interrupt me and ask, and if I don't know the answer, I usually make one up. University of Colorado in 2004, so I haven't been out of college that long. I did not take this class in college. Right? In business, I actually don't know what I'm doing. I got an electrical engineering degree. And so most of what we do is engineering, but there's a lot of business that goes on in the background. That's me with the red hair, about third from the left, on the rowing team, shortly after Halloween a couple years ago. Why that's important is because I was working in the dorms, I was working at the Olympics, I was on the club team, and when I graduated college, I realized that all I had to do was work. That's fabulous, I can do that. Right? Yes, sir.
Is your hair redder than
A little redder. Yeah, that was like bright red after Halloween. 28 years old. I come from Oklahoma, which is a state there in the middle somewhere. Not that important. And no other family experience in business. This is sort of the first hack at it. So we've been in the beginning, in 2003, whenever I started the company, we were in bedrooms and basements for the first 3 years. This is actually a picture of my bedroom with about 5 days worth of orders on it. So you can see it was really quite small to begin with. We've grown quite large, but you got to realize that in the beginning, when we were doing business, I say we a lot, right? That's the proverbial we. Because we didn't want people knowing. Would you feel comfortable purchasing stuff from somebody's bedroom that looked like that, right? Not really, right? We made ourselves look bigger than we really were. Whenever we answered the phone, we said, "Oh, I'm really sorry. I'll talk to shipping for you. I'll make sure that never happens again." While I sit down on my bed and cut open the box and fix whatever order I had just messed up. So in the beginning, we weren't really sure how many orders we were going to get, and I was pretty surprised to see that the first order came through in 7 hours. I had spent about a month or two putting the website together and getting inventory up and taking pictures, and when the first order came through, I went, oh, I guess I need a box. Right? Starting a business, you don't really think about all the aspects, including order fulfillment. And as an engineer, I kind of had to fumble through that. When I started the business, I assumed I would be selling to my friends at CU. I would be selling to folks in Colorado. And when the third order came through from France, I realized that I had grossly underestimated the size of our market. It was pretty fabulous. On top of that, how do you ship to France? Right? I had no idea. So every day is a new day in business, and when the order comes through from France, you go, okay, well, I guess I'll figure out how to ship this to France. So the 100% PayPal for 3 months, that was important because in 2002, 2003, it was difficult to accept credit cards. Now it's pretty commonplace and pretty easy to set up, but back then you had to do something called a merchant account. And a merchant account is this application, you answer a bunch of very hard questions, weird questions, you give them about $100 to $110 for the application fee. And so I fill all this out, and a couple days later I get a FedEx envelope. Right? And inside the FedEx envelope is a disposable camera with 5 pictures on it. right? I'm going, why in the world did they send me a FedEx? And so from the shipping label, I realized that it came from the merchant service people. So I call them up and I say, hey, I just gave you $100 and wanted a merchant account, and you guys sent me a disposable camera. That's not really what I was looking for. What's going on? And they said, oh, no problem. We sometimes have a problem with fraud. And so we need for you to take a picture of your inventory, take a picture of your shipping department, and take a picture of the outside of your facility, right? I say, well, ma'am, that's fine, but that's the inside of my bedroom, the inside of my bedroom, and the outside of my bedroom. And she said, oh, that's fine. Okay. So I took these pictures and FedExed it back to them, and they approved that. So I don't know how bad it has to be not to get approved, but at least in 2002, that was enough. So we were very lucky. Manufacturing, in the beginning, I had absolutely no money for capital, and so the way that we did manufacturing, normally you do that with very large machines and millions of dollars worth of capital. We didn't have that, and we couldn't borrow it, and we couldn't raise it, and so necessity is the mother of all need, right? Or need is whatever it is. We figured out how to do manufacturing with a $40 hot plate. Right, we had to create ways of building electronics because we had no other way of doing it. So lots of tutorials online about that. We kind of share everything that we do, very transparent about it. And in 3 years, the first 3 years of business, we did 10,000 orders. That's important because we're currently doing 10,000 orders a month. So in 7 years, we've grown to that magnitude where things have gotten pretty crazy. And here we are. 87 employees. We shipped to 107 countries and counting, and we did 10 million in revenue in 2009. So I never dreamed it would get this big. I thought we were going to plateau at 5 employees and $1 million a year, and then here we are at 10 million, and there's no end in sight. So we are in a very, very happy time right now in the expansion of electronics and building stuff, right? We all want to hack. So how far do people remember back in electronics? When I was an engineering student in 2002, 2003, this is sort of what the websites looked like, okay? If you're an engineering student and you needed parts, if it was surface mount, it was incredibly hard to access because you had to learn how to solder that stuff, and the breakout boards weren't really available, and the technology was really hard to access. And of course, Radio Shack, I mean, they're awesome, they've been extremely successful, but now they just kind of sell cell phone chargers. Right? And so to get access to those electronics isn't just around the corner anymore. We now have to go to these big, thick printed catalogs. And what they did with those catalogs in roughly 2000 is they chopped them up and they put them online. And this is what you get. I don't know what a quad 2-input NAND gate is, that first line right there. And it's 40 cents, but where's the picture? Where's the data sheet? Where's how I hook that up? Give me an example of how I would use this part. This isn't rocket science, right? But this is in 2002, and they really had really poor websites. So in 2002, I thought I could do better. I knew that if I was having these problems, other folks would too. And in 2002, I was programming PIC microcontrollers. I had a programmer. I set it down on some bits of wire. And that programmer cost me $200. And when I set it down on those bits of wire, there was a spark and some smoke came up, and I fried my $200 programmer in a couple seconds. I was a poor student. I didn't have the money to begin with for that $200 programmer. And here I am burning it up. So the only way I could afford another one was finding the cheapest thing I could online. And where I found it, this company called Olimex kept popping up. And I don't know about you, but that's still how their website looks today, and that doesn't really instill, shopper experience to me. They don't have online checkout. To this day, the way that you buy, they're really good programmers, and they're very inexpensive, but you have to send them an email and say, hey, I'd like to buy this. And they email you back with the form, and they say, oh, no problem, it's $35 plus $7 in shipping. Please fill out this form with your credit card information and fax it back to Bulgaria. I don't really know how to fax to Bulgaria, and I'm not really cool with that. So let's try to do something better. And so that's where I saw the void. As I said, maybe I can do better. And so I started importing these parts from Bulgaria back in 2003, just as a distributorship, just saying, hey, this is really cool stuff, but I bet I can make it a little bit easier for folks to buy. And here we are. This isn't rocket science, right? It's add to your cart, here's a picture of it. But back in 2002, 2003, this was groundbreaking. to have a close-up picture of electronics, I thought it was simple, but for a lot of folks, it was completely wild. And this has taken 7 years to get here, and a lot of IT and a lot of marketing and communication layout and all that fun stuff. But yeah, now we have a website that sells stuff. Cool. Most of you folks, if you know about Maker Faire and you know about SparkFun, you know what these electronics are. You know about hardware. But I just wanted to give you a quick breakdown. That black chip, top left picture, is a microcontroller. What is it? It's a $2 computer that can run at 20 million things a second. Okay, cool. So I program it in whatever language I can find, Basic, C, I've seen some stuff in Java. It's pretty powerful stuff, right? You load your code onto that, and every time I turn it on, it does one really simple thing, okay? So if we use the microcontroller to talk to the picture directly below it on the left is a motion sensor, and I'm looking around the room. You guys don't have any motion sensors. Most security systems have the little thing in the corner of the room so that when you walk around, it detects that motion, and so it can tell presence in the room, okay? That's a motion sensor, 10 bucks, okay? So top and to the right is a servo. What can I do with a servo? Well, you control the servo, it's an output. So with the microcontroller checking to see if somebody's in the room or there's some sort of movement, we can then control the motor to do something. The best application I've seen of this, right, it's 15, 20 bucks worth of parts, is the servo was connected to the power button on a blender. Why would I need to connect a motion sensor to a microcontroller to a blender? Because of a website. Let's see if we can bring it up and get it running. BlenderDefender.com. This gentleman had a problem with his cat jumping onto the counter. And the way that you take care of that, and you scare the cat off the counter, and it doesn't hurt the cat. The cat learns over time to keep off the counter, but it was a problem that he had with very inexpensive electronics, a very simple thing. Will it ever be a consumer product? Probably not. But did he take care of the problem? Absolutely. So just interesting applications of very common electronics. And then over to the right, the thing that says XB is a wireless module, very simple to pass stuff back and forth. Directly below that is the Arduino board. I'm sure most of you have heard of the Arduino, but it's a rather inexpensive development platform, has a microcontroller on board. It's all open source, uses a form of C and processing and some other open source languages. Very low barrier to get started. So the Arduino board is slowly but surely taking over the world. I've heard they've shipped over 150,000 units. That's a lot of Arduino boards. Lots of instructors, lots of artists using it, a really interesting board. And then just to the left of that, it says BMP085 breakout. It's a barometric pressure sensor, so sensitive that it can detect the difference between 30 centimeters of air. So if I hold it here, I get a reading. If I hold it here, I get a different reading. It's that sensitive. Okay, that sensor, and this is the secret sauce to SparkFun, by the way. That sensor was developed by Bosch. They probably spent $5 to $10 million developing that, tuning it, producing it, figuring out manufacturability, getting reliability down. And what did SparkFun do? Well, we came along and we bought that sensor and we soldered it to a board. And look at how much bigger it is. It's about 10 times the size of that sensor. Well, that sensor is really cool, but you can't use it. It's surface mount. It's difficult to use. So what SparkFun does, the secret sauce, is we break it out. We solder it to a board. We make it a little bit bigger, and we test it to make sure that it works, and we provide you with example code. What is it? It's a shortcut. Yeah, you could lay out your own board. You could solder it yourself. We show you how to do all that. But if really your project is to get into some barometric pressure reading project, let us sell you the breakout that works, and you get onto your project. So that's all we do, is we make things more accessible. Any questions, by the way? Anything? Cool, we'll keep screen. So a lot of people ask and are surprised by where SparkFun gets its stuff. We do a lot of manufacturing in-house. We're based out of Boulder, Colorado, and we have about 1,500, 1,600 SKUs at this time, 1,600 different things that you can buy on the website. 300 of those are designed and built in-house. Okay, let's see. So on the left, we've got what's called a pick-and-place machine, a pick-and-place robot. Those things cost us about $50,000. It sounds like a lot. They're actually quite cheap in comparison. Well, you at home, and we show you on our website how you can build surface-mount electronics. You can build them by hand. You can build them with a $40 hot plate. And we did that for years. You get a pick-and-place robot not because you need it to build electronics. You need it whenever you need to build 500 of something. A human, I can myself build 20 or 30 of an item, but when we need 50, when we need 100, when we need 500, that's when we finally get to the output or the scale where these machines are necessary. And we partner with unique innovators worldwide. We collaborate with a lot of different folks. I don't have a lot of passion for, I don't know, bicycle electronics, okay? But there's some folks out there that live and breathe and die by bicycle electronics, and so they are the best at creating this bicycle lamp, okay? I may not be, but they are. And so we team up with them and help them build the widget that they need built. Okay, so we team up with folks that are truly innovative in their field, and we're best at building and laying out PCBs, so we kind of share the innovation. And finally, relationships with reliable global manufacturers. If we're not best at creating USB cables, let's find the person that is and buy USB cables from them. Let's find the person that's best at creating the little bits and pieces that everybody's gonna need, wall adapters and all these different things, and we import them. And I'm kind of happy. I was in Shenzhen February of last year, just mind-boggling amounts of electronics. It's like a kid in a candy store. It's so much fun, the crazy stuff over there. But this is a brand that I thought was really interesting. I don't know if you can read. It's like a green laser projector. It comes from a newish brand. It's the brand written on there. Doesn't that really make you want to buy it? It's not new. It's newish. It's almost new. Yeah. Looks like it actually worked. It just said newish. So I thought that was kind of fun. The elevator speech for SparkFun. And this is the best analogy that I've heard. And it comes from a friend of mine who works at a company called Acroname. And we were talking over lunch one day, and he was like, you know what? SparkFun is like Home Depot. I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting, right? You go to Home Depot, and you walk down the store, and there's wood, and there's screws, and there's plaster there, but you don't expect to see a bathroom on the shelf that you just pick up and put in your cart, right? They may have demos, they may have different things showing you how you could redo your bathroom, but they don't sell you the bathroom. That's how it works at SparkFun, right? We don't sell you a cell phone. We don't sell you a laser pointer. We show you the bits and pieces that you could string together to build something interesting, and and we educate you how to do it, and we encourage people to do it themselves. Soldering iron there in the corner, and then down below was a Halloween project. Okay, so I wanted to show folks how to use electroluminescent wire, EL wire. It's kind of bendable plastic stuff that's got phosphorescent built inside, so when you expose it to high voltage, it lights up these brilliant colors. Okay, it's also called cold neon, because it's like a neon light, but it's flexible. So what I did is, just for the fun value, I went online and found a site called Monkey Dragon and bought a straitjacket. Really good, like canvas, like restricting straitjacket. And on the front of it, I put a blue heart in EL wire. Then I put another one, and another one, and another one, right? And they were individually controlled by a microcontroller, an Arduino, a high voltage source, and a lithium polymer battery, so you could walk around in a straitjacket and have a beating heart, right? And people really thought this was a deep piece of art installation. They were like, oh my God, it's like love ties you up and all this stuff. And I just bought a straitjacket and put some electronics in it, but they thought it had a really deep meaning. So lots of tutorials online to show you how to hook stuff up. Again, is this ever gonna be a consumer product? I hope not, but it should show you how you could do your own EL wire project. We never expected the number of communities to come out of this. Okay, we knew that there was going to be hobbyists. We knew that there was going to be engineers working on stuff in the garage and all these different things. And over time, we keep getting these emails from people doing like bird migration. You know, RFID and nests and trying to figure out how much they weigh and when the birds come and go. And like, wow, our stuff is in there? That's crazy. Car modification, atmospheric research. So this is one that I'm currently really into. I'm hoping to launch in a couple weeks. But it's helium balloons, 7 feet in diameter. You let them go, and they pop at 110,000 feet. Okay, you got about 4 pounds that you can lift to 110,000 feet. So what do? You take pictures. That's an amateur Canon camera at 110,000 feet, taking a picture of the curvature of the Earth. That's amazing. And we couldn't do that 10 years ago, right? It took a military budget. It took a government grant to pull off some of this stuff. And now we can launch it in our own backyard. Kinesiology, measuring how the body responds to things. We have a guy who's using our accelerometers to measure base jumping, right? He jumps off of things, and he was wondering why his neck hurt so bad, right? And you look at the accelerations, when his parachute pops, they pack this thing so tight that it's the equivalent of a mild rear-end collision, right? So there's a lot of deceleration and forces acting on the human body, and so some of our sensors help detect that. Aerospace, and of course Burning Man, right? We all need blinky stuff for Burning Man. So I like to think that there's some of our stuff out there. So we're going to talk about a couple examples. Wearable electronics. So the woman on the left has what's called the Lily Pad. Some really interesting embedded electronics developed by Dr. Leah Beakley. She's in the Media Labs now. You sew with conductive thread, right? And you can put this into your clothing, and you can connect different parts of your clothing and have them talk to each other using conductive thread. Then there's the musical group OK Go, doing a lot with music and lighting and some really interesting YouTube videos. And of course, everything needs to Twitter. Everything. So top right corner is what it does is it measures soil water content. Okay, so let me know whenever my plant is getting thirsty, except put sort of a snark to it. So it sends you some really mad and evil Twitters whenever you don't water your plant. And then, I don't know if you can tell, but in the bottom left, there's a methane sensor in his chair. Right, so it twitters every time someone's, and then up in the top left is you put a band across a pregnant woman and it twitters every time it feels baby movement. So kind of interesting. And then there in the middle, of course, we have the SparkFun tweeting kegerator. So every time you take a beer, it tells us what the weight contents of the keg is so that we try to never run out of beer. Do you guys have any questions? No? Cool. This was Halloween last year. A gentleman ran a pumpkin patch, and he told us that he had a pumpkin trebuchet. And we said, wow, that's really cool. So we decided to team up with him, and we stuck a bunch of electronics inside of a pumpkin. And it was amazing. There's a bunch of things. I don't know if this is going to work. Yeah. That's where it hit the ground, right? We hit like nearly 30 Gs as that pumpkin like destroyed the surface of the earth. We broke an axis on one of our accelerometers. So it threw this pumpkin like 300 yards down the cornfield. This thing was amazing and scary to stand next to. Why do this? Just because it's fun. Just because you get to throw electronics down a cornfield. The data analysis. If you zoom in on some of the acceleration data, that's not going to work. You see the little blips along the curves? What is that going on? What is that little thing? Exactly. It's the rotation of the pumpkin. We figured out the pumpkin was spinning at about 7 hertz. You might be able to design a better trebuchet using this information. I don't know, but it's just fun to look at the data and figure out how things affect the world with electronics and monitoring and stuff. The good, the bad, and the ugly. So I don't know if you guys saw this homepage post. Electronics, right? Everything we build can be used for good and for bad. And so a couple months ago, we generally post good stuff on our homepage. Hey, check it out, pumpkin throwing, model rocketry, kids soldering, all sorts of fun stuff. We got an email from a customer who said, I want you to know I don't want to make it public, just wanted you guys to know in like a private email that on the front cover of the Waterloo News in Canada was this article. Right, and it's a gentleman holding up these electronics, and everything's kind of fuzzy, and the only thing that you can see in focus is SparkFun.com written across this hunk of electronics. And what it was is in Canada, there was you go to a grocery store, you buy all your stuff. At checkout, they hand you this little piece of electronics. You swipe your credit card, type in your PIN number, and hand it back to the person checking you out. Okay. Well, this had been going on for a while, and something had broken, and so that handheld device went in for repair. And when they opened it up, there was a bunch of extra electronics that shouldn't have been there, right? And it said SparkFun on it. Uh-oh. So what they had done is they had been modifying these to to log the credit card numbers, and then they would walk into the grocery store with their cell phone and over Bluetooth download all the credit card numbers. Right, so this is a very bad application of electronics, right? This is using electronics for bad, but is it going to happen? Yes. Should we stop selling that Bluetooth module because of it? I don't think so. We sell thousands and thousands of those Bluetooth modules. I saw one being used earlier today to control robots over cell phone and do all sorts of cool stuff with electronics, right? So bad things happen. And so we need to sort of be aware of that and try as a community to sort of direct that away and do good things with electronics. And then I don't know if you guys saw, it's on Adult Swim, the LED, Moonanite. It's a Moonanite, yes. Okay, so it was a marketing stunt for Comedy Central. A PR firm put together some LED signs, and that is a character from that series. And they put these signs up around Boston. Well, Boston PD didn't think too highly of this and described them as bombs, thought that they were terrorist activity. And the PR firm and everybody got in a lot of trouble. It's an LED. Right? How can we educate the community to know the difference between safe electronics and unsafe electronics? This is, just a sign. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then that's just TJ in receiving, and he's very ugly. That's the guys at SparkFun. We do all of our product shoots. We take photos of all of our products, and you give them a little freedom and creativity, and they get kind of wild. So those are our new lab coats. So with the good, the bad, the ugly, right? We sort of describe what the new rules of electronics are. And this goes back to when I was an electrical engineer. I was made afraid of hooking stuff up. Are you absolutely sure that it's correct? Have you got it hooked up backwards? Have you got the right voltage? All these things, and I never really got to tinker much. I was always going through the steps and doing these different things. What I learned is that you really just have to plug it in, right? And if something goes wrong, unplug it, right? It's not the end of the world. It's actually kind of hard to destroy an ATmega. It's kind of hard to destroy an Arduino. There's thousands of them out there, and those things are rock solid. The worst thing that you do is reverse power on something. You go, oh shoot, I hooked it up wrong. You pull it back, you plug it in the right way, it'll probably still work. Electronics are being built more and more robust every day, so don't worry about it. If it sparks, unplug it, right? That was kind of fun, actually, right? I learned a lot whenever stuff sparks, right? You learn a lot from your failures. If it smokes, man, that was fun, turn it off. If it heats up, check it and plug it back in, right? Some things need to heat up. Yes, sir?
You had the blender example at the beginning, and so do you sell stuff that integrate electronics with high power equipment, like 120 volts? And have you had problems with that?
Good question. So how do you interface to like main power, 120 volt, 220 volt, stuff like that? As an embedded engineer that does most of his stuff with batteries, 120 volts scares me. 110 volts, stuff like that. We do have some high power relays. We do have some tutorials. The reflow toaster controller is one where we try to turn on and off a toaster oven to help with reflow. We also have some other products that now allow you from a 5 volt pin to turn on and off a very good extension cord effectively. So that is a big problem to turn on and off blenders, but there's lots of ways to hack it. Be safe. If you're messing with 120, be very safe. But if you're messing with batteries, especially alkalines, they'll internally limit themselves and shut themselves down. So, any other questions? Cool. And don't be afraid of trying something new. That's where I was with SparkFun Electronics. Whenever I was trying something new, I was working on that microcontroller. That's when my programmer sparked, but that's when I was having the most fun, right? So it's when you're right out there on the edge that you're having the most fun. This is the GPS wall clock. At SparkFun, we were selling GPS modules, and I wanted to show people that GPS gives you longitude and latitude, but a lot of folks didn't realize that it's very accurate time. So I went to Home Depot and I bought a bunch of materials, and you could build a clock, right, with little 7-segment displays, or you could build a 24-inch per segment, 12-foot long GPS clock, right? Bigger, it lights up the office screen. And the best part was when we had just put this up, and I don't know if you can tell, but there's an LCD monitor sitting right underneath it. That was Eric's desk back in the day. It was one of the employees at SparkFun. And so he's working there on the computer, and Pete, one of the jokers in the office, would walk by, and he'd say, "Hey, Eric." And Eric would turn around. "Yeah, Pete." Pete would go, "Hey, Eric, do you have the time?" Eric go, "Yeah." Pete's like, 3:15. Pete go, "Oh, thanks," and go back to work. Right? Pete would walk back by. "Hey, Eric, hey," turn around. "Do you know what time it is?" He's like, "Yeah, dude, it's like 3:45. It's a giant clock behind him, right?" And just kept pulling Eric's leg, had no idea. So GPS wall clock, it's a tutorial now, and Google, we love Google and Google loves us, right? We like to be seen as a resource. We like to be seen as a place that you can go to get information. And because of that, we're ranked very well. So when you Google GPS clock, we show up second or third, but behind Wikipedia, behind some other very much better resource sites. But this tutorial pops up very high, which educates people and then drives traffic to our website. So that's a lot of how we get our traffic and new customers. And so that's effectively it. Trevor, could you give me a buzz? And so this was a project that we did like a couple years ago. This was one of our first tutorials. This was like 2004, I think, when the Motorola Razr had just come out. And the Motorola Razr was the smallest, like the lightest, the weirdest thing. And so my friends and I had a bar bet about who could build the biggest, noisiest, heaviest phone. And so we all joked about it. Who could build it? And I was like, oh, that'd be really funny if it was this giant thing or whatever. And in the back of my mind, I went home thinking, maybe I could pull that off. So I jumped on eBay, and where do you find the biggest, heaviest rotary phone? Of course, on eBay. I didn't have one sitting around. And took a couple weeks, tore out all the insides, put in a cell phone module, and now we have a rotary cellular phone. Okay, I get really funny looks from bouncers taking this out to bars, right? I say, what are you doing with that? It's my cell phone. No, it's not. What are you doing with that? They're afraid I'm gonna hit somebody with it, right? And so, big, heavy rotary phone. We wrote a tutorial about it. We said, hey, this is what we did. We tore out the insides. You can actually dial out on it. So there's a microcontroller inside that looks at the switches. There's a technical write-up about how you decode the rotary. Oh, it's got a touch interface, by the way. Right? Sorry, bad joke. So it works pretty well. We wrote the tutorial, and the next couple of days, our site went down. There was so much traffic from all these different sources, and we got written up in the New York Times, right? That's an article. People went crazy over this retro thing, and we got hundreds of emails asking, oh my God, where can I buy one? And we said, no. It's a tutorial. It's there to show you how to build it yourself. And that wasn't enough. We kept getting emails, and okay, fine. I had the parts to build 2 of these. One was built, worked kind of okay, and I had the parts to build another one. So I said, well, the parts cost me $150. Maybe we could sell it for $200 and make some profit. No, let's make it $300. No, let's make it $400 so that nobody buys one. We've been selling them ever since. So it was very cool. So now when you Google rotary phone, I like to brag that we still show up second behind Wikipedia, right? And that's exactly where we should be, right? We're not, Wikipedia is the real resource, but man, there's this weird tutorial that everybody links to about this rotary phone hack. So that's where SparkFun lives. And then one more slide, because I was told to kind of add it in. We had SparkFun Free Day. I don't know if you guys heard about this. Cool, yeah, hopefully you guys got to hear about it, and hopefully you participated in it and got a free $100 order. But I had this crazy idea of giving away $100,000. Anyways, we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. So if you see the big spike, we had, I don't know, 5, 8, 10 times the amount of traffic that we're used to. And we brought on sort of a maelstrom. But the badge of honor for our IT group was for about an hour on that day, we were the #1 most searched term on Google. And that was a really, really big deal to us, right? That's the badge of honor for our IT guys. And we think it was the #1 search term because our site was down. So everybody was wondering, they were searching about it rather than actually being able to get to the site, but that's okay. So that was Free Day, and that's sort of SparkFun, and that's our market. Do you guys have any kind of questions about what we do and what we build? Yes, sir.
Do you have a favorite new product on the SparkFun website or something up and coming?
Do I have a favorite up-and-coming product? Is there something coming that...
Or just something that's on there now that you
Great question. Stuff that has me really excited? I don't know. I'm kind of a sensor guy. So the new sensors that are coming out that have, first it was the triple axis accelerometer, and now that has been completely commoditized by the Wii. Inside the Wii, there's triple axis accelerometer, great. And now there's dual axis gyros, and the first triple axis gyros are just coming out. And what this means is you have now a single sensor that can detect 3 axes of rotational speed. The next chips to come out in the next 6 months or a year, I'm predicting, are the combination stuff. So you have a single chip that has triple axis accel, triple axis gyro. What that means is we get really interesting tracking. Okay, you can do all sorts of crazy dead reckoning. Whenever GPS goes away and you walk into a building, you then start to calculate, okay, what's going on? And so we get indoor tracking a lot better than what we have. It's not perfect, but it's better. So that's not something we're selling, but that's something I'm hoping that those big chip foundries will spend lots and lots of money developing, and then we'll break out and get to play with.
Will it fit on a cat collar?
Will it fit on a cat collar? Cat tracking is actually one of my highest priority projects. There's some really interesting stuff out there with cats. Yeah, as long, that's sort of the overall size comparison. If it's small enough to go onto a cat, then we're getting to the size that we can start tracking some really interesting stuff. Yes, sir. Good question. So am I still doing some of the business stuff, or have we hired somebody to help me do it? I am still under the delusion that I can handle it. It's going pretty well so far. One of the problems is that I haven't gotten to do as much engineering as I'd like to do. Yeah, there's really only one project. I've given up all the projects to our engineering group. The only project that I work on now is this data logger called OpenLog. And I get to spend 4 or 5 hours a week working on that. And so that's the project that keeps me sane, right? And I really have to carve out that time and keep it my own. The business stuff, I'm hacking my way through it and sort of learning from everybody I can, but I realize that there is going to come a point where we are going to have to hire somebody else to do the business aspect of things. Oh, the cease and desist. Yeah, I'm good friends with Sun Microsystems now. So we got a cease and desist letter. I don't know if you guys read on the website. So SparkFun was running for about 6.5, 7 years, and we get our first cease and desist letter that says, please take steps to immediately turn over the sparkfun.com domain. Are you kidding? Like, no, that's going straight for the throat. And it came from K&L Gates, which is a big law firm here in California, and they represented Spark International. I don't know if you remember Spark servers from the late 90s, early 2000s, Spark with a C. And we had just filed for the SparkFun trademark, and that's where the cease and desist came from, is that Spark had to defend their trademark against the SparkFun trademark. Long story short, did a homepage post about it. They got a lot of phone calls about it, and we have signed a coexistence letter so that everybody seems to be pretty happy. But it was just sort of a, what do you call it, like a belt mark, a belt tab along the way of the SparkFun history. We got our first cease and desist. We learned what it meant, and we now know how to sort of deal with law issues in the future. Second one? No, that was our first cease and desist. It's a first and only, yep. We're very lucky. We're very, very lucky. Yes, sir?
So do you have analytics on your customers that show sort of what's their life cycle? Like if they buy an Arduino in month 1, how many months before they're buying better, cooler stuff? What's the life cycle of your typical customer?
Really good question. We've done some preliminary analytics, sort of a hack job, trying to figure out what's going on. It's kind of hard to tell because you can't tell if we get an order from Google. Is Google doing something, or are the engineers at Google having it sent to Google and doing it at home? So what's the male-female ratio? What's the age group? All that fun stuff. What we found, to answer your question about, we see customers, and they come in and they buy $30 or $40 or $50 worth of stuff. Okay, and then 6 weeks later, we see another order for 80 or 90. And then a couple months later, it's $100, $100. And then it trails off. And what we think is happening is we're educating. We're showing folks that, hey, here's a microcontroller, it's $30. And then over time you learn, oh wait, that chip is just $2? I don't need to buy the $30 Arduino. And now I figured out how to navigate the DigiKey search engine, right? I'm not as scared of this big, scary DigiKey site. SparkFun, you were great, you helped me find the stuff I needed, and we educate them to the point. We share with them enough information that then they go off and sort of do their own thing, so they buy less from us. And we're pretty okay with that. It's just more people doing more cool stuff out there. We're kind of a gateway drug, yeah. Yes, sir. The question was whether or not you can solder to stainless steel wire. On a Bosch oxygen sensor. Have you tried?
No, I haven't tried.
Let me know when you do.
I will.
I really don't know. I have tried to solder to something called nichrome wire.
Yes, I know that.
And I was trying to use it for my balloon set thing, and I couldn't physically solder to it. And I don't know the chemical properties of the makeup of the metal or why it wasn't working, but I can tell you it didn't work. So I don't know the reasons behind why they don't want you to do that. I wonder if it's a physical thing or if it's going to affect the actual sensing. So, don't really know. Good luck though. That sounds cool. Yes, sir.
Speaking of sensors, when do we get our hands on, like something cheap but Raman spectroscopy? I've been looking, like around the hardware, and like everything is in the multi-$1,000 range. It looks as if like there's a prism inside. That's the expensive part, but I have no idea because it's all included.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. What type of a sensor is it?
It's a Raman spectroscopy device. Like so you touch something, and it'll tell you the composition of it. If you touch like a glass bottle with fluid inside, it can tell you like whether it's beer inside or I don't know milk or. But it's very interesting, but it's multi-$1,000. I've seen devices that being said where like it's like a keychain and it will, it can be mass produced obviously for a single or specific frequency. Mm-hmm. So you have devices which will detect, I don't know, rotten food or something like that by the presence of a specific marker.
I don't know that instance specifically, but I have seen a lot of open source efforts where they say, hey, this prism-based spectroscopy unit is extremely accurate and works very, very well, but I don't need that level of accuracy. I need a couple of orders of magnitude less.
Yeah.
And so can I reduce the cost down to hundreds or thousands of dollars instead of $100,000? One of the best applications I saw was a water testing unit, and they had an RGB LED. They had a UV LED and they had an infrared LED, so you could kind of get the spectrum. And then they had a sensor on the opposite side. And you would put a sample of water in between, and based upon what wavelengths were absorbed and detected, you could or maybe detect what's in the water, biological matter, and all they were going for was, can I drink the water? Red light, green light. So if I fly into a country afterwards. So it doesn't answer your spectroscopy question, but I see that there's two approaches, one on the really cheap level. So.
Or pesticides in beer, for that matter.
Yeah. Other questions? Yes, sir.
So you were mentioning when you got started, you started by importing stuff from Bulgaria.
Yes.
Was that really complicated? Like, was it hard? Like, I've thought of business ideas before that involve importing stuff from other countries, but it seems like, I don't know, customs and taxes and things would be weird. Was that hard for you, or was it just like, oh, I'll just order a bunch of stuff and have it come to my house?
It's a little different every day, right? So when I first started importing stuff from Bulgaria, the first shipment went surprisingly well, surprisingly easy. A couple shipments into it, it got held up because they really wanted to make sure that those items didn't contain RAM. Because if they did contain RAM, then it fell into a different tariff code that got taxed differently. Okay, so the customs people don't really know. They just read the product description and they go, okay, how do I categorize this? It's actually quite easy to import goods and different things from across the world. It's just that they have to be properly recorded, and then you need to know what to expect import-wise. My best advice is to always try it, and you're just going to learn over time. Each day is going to be a little bit different, and in the end, you'll learn very quickly.
Cool, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Yeah, so Batch PCB is this sort of side service that we offer. We, as engineers, I don't know if you guys have ever laid out a printed circuit board. Every printed circuit board I lay out is wrong in some way. It's broken in some way. And so there's a lot of fabrication companies out there that say, oh, no problem, you only have to order 5 copies of your design. Well, I don't want 5 copies, I just want 1, because I know it's probably going to be messed up. And so Batch PCB was an effort to work with our PCB fabrication house, Gold Phoenix, and say, hey, we're going to fill up this panel. We get 15 by 10 square inches, and we put the engineers' designs there, and then we had some open space. And we said, well, if we're not going to use that space, maybe we can sell it to our customers. And so our customers then began buying space on that panel. So Batch PCB is just the service we offer to get PCBs fabricated. Does that answer your question, Batch PCB?
I've used the service. I like it. I just thought maybe you might have something to say about it.
Works really well. I can't wait for my PCBs to come in. They're supposed to be here any day now. Yeah, we're waiting for a new controller for my balloon satellite project. Any other questions? Yes, sir. What? Fabulous question. So the question was, what do we think about 32-bit processors and new stuff coming down the line? An ARM7 and ARM9, the things that run our cell phones are tremendously powerful. I have more computing power in my Nexus 1 than like anything. It's incredible how low power and fast things are becoming. And I had this debate with my director of engineering yesterday. It's sort of two camps. I think that 90% of the Blender Defender projects out there, right, need an 8-bit microcontroller. You don't need an ARM7 to tackle a lot of the small projects out there. An 8-bit microcontroller does it. Now, if you're doing graphical user interfaces and you're doing sort of heavy computing, absolutely. But in general, I think an 8-bit microcontroller can go a pretty long way. So I think 8-bit will be around for a long, long time. You had a question, sir? So the question I heard was, how do we decide new products to sell, and how do we decide what to carry?
Yeah, was it something like you're reselling things that maybe made in someone's garage?
Yes.
Yeah.
So some of the way that we look at a product is when we decide whether or not to carry it on the SparkFun site, is it really cool? Does it fill a void? Is it reasonably priced? Right? There's a bunch of criteria. No. Usually we start with 5 or 10 units and see how those sell. Oh yeah, absolutely. We at SparkFun, we don't build 1,000 of anything. We build 10, and we see how they sell. And same goes for the other products. That usually means that initially we're out of stock of the really cool stuff, but then we very quickly try to get it back in stock. Cool. Yes, sir.
When you send a helium balloon up to the camera, how do you get the camera back?
Great question, very carefully. How do you get the camera back from the Helium Balloon project? It's easy to send the camera up, it's hard to get it back. We add a lot of electronics that transmit GPS location. So you're actually actively chasing it in a car, listening to the GPS longitude and latitude, and then try to recover it. And then you hope that it doesn't break, because if it goes black, you'll probably never find it out in the field somewhere. So yeah, it's pretty hard to recover, and it's a lot of fun whenever you do. Avoid the jet stream. And yeah, luckily we're in Colorado. I know a lot of folks on the East Coast have to worry about it blowing into the Atlantic Ocean, so yeah, we don't have that problem. Cool, very much. Well, thank you very much for having me.